Goo is the guy that's excited and fake gullible to certain situations.
Now, back to Steiny and Guru on 95.7 The Game.
The fake gullible, boy. Oh, sorry, Steiny.
All right, it is the crossover. We're joined by Willard and Dibs.
Whole gang all here.
What's up, gents?
Well, hello. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
We on, Grandy?
Hey, yeah.
Hello.
Hey, hello.
How we doing?
Hello, friends.
Hi.
Yeah.
Watch out!
Getting
Another
excited.
three-pointer went in. 26.
Dude.
Don't leave Draymond open.
That was amazing.
They gonna get you.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I liked
26.
it. The thought did go through my head because, believe me, that was a ton of fun to watch. But you're also sitting there going, dude, you probably should beat someone by 80 when you shoot like that.
Yep.
And the Lakers are still in the game, so I appreciated that Steve Kerr after the game was we actually didn't play that well.
We talked about it.
It's just everything went in.
He kept it real.
I mean, my God, 26 for 41? Is that what they were?
Man.
What on earth is that?
And the Lakers got it to 6 late in the third.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Never felt, though, like that thing was in danger. It didn't feel like the earlier blown leads, like, oh, God, and that thing.
Here we go.
It was like careless mistake after careless mistake and then missed threes, and then next thing you know, you go from up 15 to down 4. It never got to that point.
Wow. Yeah.
It's the greatest three-point shooting game in the history of the NBA with 40 or more attempts. Right. Yeah. 60,
60%,
whatever it was, 62, 63. They were all going in. J.K. threw one up in the fourth quarter. It was like bing, 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 up off the backboard. It goes in. It's just one of those nights, and am I the only one that had the little dirty little thought of, not you want to save some, but what if you have to come back here and there's Anthony Davis, everything at stake, and you just have that game where you couldn't miss? I still think it's incredibly probable. I think there's a fair chance it's here now. Oh, yeah, I got you. There's a very fair chance. I think, they control their destiny. The Warriors do. Two of these 3 games, I mean, famous last words, but when you get to the final week of the season, Portland and Utah are not playing anymore.
New Orleans needs
New Orleans is going to be playing that game because they're trying to stay the heck out of this play-in tournament.
Yeah.
And so that's the one. But if the Warriors can get it, then Chase Center will probably be all lit up a week from tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, and maybe you're waiting for the Beamers. The Beam might be coming in.
Maybe.
The Beam's only up by 1 game on you, and the Beam blew a big lead last night. Beamers had OKC. They had them by the short hairs. They had the Thunder down under, and then they let them go. They let them off the hook.
They're still going to have to lose 2 more.
Right.
For you to pass them.
But they have New Orleans, and they have Phoenix. They got Phoenix.
And they got the tiebreaker on you,
exactly.
too. I think Steiny.
But that's why you need to lose 2.
Okay, all right.
If they lose 1 and you're tied, they beat you.
If you win out and Sacramento loses to both New Orleans and Phoenix, hello, 8 seed.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Hello, friends.
Hello.
Could you imagine that?
Exactly.
Starts tomorrow,
So if you have to play a first game on the road, you would want it to be Sac, correct?
Correct.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a bus ride.
Sure. Say it louder so all the fans are
What
about really mad. And so can I hope they go to Sacramento.
No, because you told everyone you wanted them to kick yesterday.
No,
you were talking about them punting it.
Hey, I heard somebody said that.
My autobiography, you heard me wrong.
No, the title of the autobiography is I didn't say that.
Yeah.
And I already did this on the crossover yesterday.
I told him.
Thank you for telling him.
It was an intimation sensation.
Every time I turn the show on this week, they're like, Willard wanted to tank.
He says it's Shasky. He goes, it's not me, Goo. Tell him. I said, I'll tell him.
I did not say that. And at no point did I even insinuate it. I did say, and I'll say it again, next week.
Say it with your chest.
Next week, you'd rather play the Kings than the Lakers.
There's no doubt.
Don't get into we beat them last night. Yeah, with 26 threes and no AD.
Right.
Okay. You'd rather play the Kings than the Lakers.
Ooh, Kenny Carried Away is listening right now. He's coming for you.
Kenny,
Diddy. Yeah.
You'd rather play the adorable Kings.
Oh, they got bigger problems than us.
Send this to
They're
Sac,
turning
Randy.
on Mike Brown.
Okay.
Yeah, they're turning on Mike.
Yeah.
Some of them.
I mean, really? They're turning on Mike Brown? Yeah, it's Mike's fault that they have no Malik Monk. And it's Mike's fault that they don't have Herder.
Because they have such a tradition there.
Yeah.
Right.
They demand
unlike any other.
But Herder used to hurt you, too. We can't forget about that.
Sure, but,
sometimes.
Two of your better 8 players are not on the team anymore. So, the fade is definitely Mike's fault. I get that.
My only point, and I said it 100 times in a row, but I know it ended up on Twitter. You want to win until you know what the other teams are going to do.
Yeah.
And I will maintain that last night could have ended up better as a loss for the Warriors if the Kings end up staying in front of you.
Yeah.
That's absolutely possible. There's all kinds of scenarios, though, so obviously you don't mess with it. There is still, I don't want to call it realistic, but there's a puncher's chance the Warriors end up in the 8. And that's obviously better.
Well, they could end up in the 7, even.
Well, that's
highly
unlikely.
Correct, but it seemed highly unlikely they'd be the 8, and now here they are a game back.
Now you kind of need the Pelicans and the Kings to lose, and they play each other. And
the Suns.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
but the Suns also play the Kings. They can't all lose. They're all playing each other.
True.
So I think that's a little bit of a wild scenario, but yeah. They could end up the 8.
Yeah, you're open for the 8 at this point.
Obviously way better.
Yeah.
So the one thing we were kind of batting around today was the Warriors may be in this play-in game, and they might be playing well, but they may play one bad game. But you look, and they're 25-11 over the last 36, right? So let's say they finish 28-12 over the last 40. But they just play a bad game in the play, and they get upset. Now, Steph has a bad shooting night, or just something happens. Maybe a guy gets tweaked. Then how do you assess the season? Is it still a disaster when you played 55-win basketball for half of it?
This is the question.
I mean, seriously, at what
disaster is too strong?
At what point is a track record like a track record?
And I'm on record as saying I'm already. If you run it back next year, I'm juiced. So I've seen enough.
Here's the thing, though. This is the scenario that it's just so Warriors. But for them to sit here and be one of the top teams in the NBA in the second half of the season, now they're fully healthy, and everyone looks at them and goes, see, this is how dangerous, this is how good they are. And yes, a week from tonight, they lose. What do you do? Have you decided that, they're only a play-in team, and they lost in a one-and-done, and those Joe Lacob major changes are needed? Or do you hang on to the fact that for 2.5 months here down the stretch, when healthy, they played really, really well?
Or non-suspension. Yeah.
Well, and then sounds like something we can yell about all summer long.
Well, and then I was thinking about, let's take the last 2 years. 1 year they're great at home, then they can't they're 20, they were 19-24. Now they're 25-11. Last year they couldn't win a road game. This year, they're 24 wins on the road already. They're kind of, I think they're still in some kind of transition because their young players are playing more than ever, under Steve Kerr. So they're just, the more I took a step back and just thought about where they were, it's just really an interesting spot. And I guess we'll find out what Joe Lacob thinks in the offseason. But you could pluck any piece of evidence you want to make your point about where you think they are.
And they lost all those close games. And if those games, half of them were reversed, then you'd be the 6th seed. Maybe you'd be the 5 right now, but they aren't. And so you're not. And also, the other piece of information is you were healthy all year.
And he said that today.
And forget the Draymond Green self-imposed, self-inflicted tantrum, because that's going to happen because it's Draymond Green. But you know what didn't happen to Draymond Green? His neck and his back, or his knees that he ices up every time he comes off the floor. Klay was healthy. Steph was healthy. Wiggins was healthy. Wiggins missed 5 games because of personal issues, but other than that, he missed 2 games. Kuminga was healthy. They all were healthy. Yeah. Chris Paul missed time, but he won't be here next year anyway. So you're going to take a team. You're going to take a team that was about 92% healthy, and you're going to expect that they're going to be as healthy or healthier next year, even though they're 1 year older?
I'd argue
that, to me, is the fool's gold part of it.
You at least have to acknowledge, though, that they were physically healthy, but potentially not always mentally healthy. Klay
Steph
Thompson
was fine.
Steph was fine. Klay Thompson was not. Jonathan Kuminga was not. Draymond Green was not. Andrew Wiggins was not. So, I think.
Okay, so is Wiggins going to be more healthy next year?
I don't know.
I would guess no.
This
is 2 straight years of him being mentally,
I'm not
quote unquote unhealthy.
I'm not refuting what you're saying. It's like every single year is different. This is where I think it does end up going back to your question, Steiny. Just Joe Lacob being who he is, I got a hard time believing that if they don't win these games next week, that he's going to say, okay, let's do it again. It's too expensive. It's just too expensive. I actually think the middle ground, the real debatable spot, is if they do come out of the play-in tournament and then they lose in 5 to the Nuggets.
Okay.
Because then you're like, oh, but they made the playoffs and they're right there and they lost to the champs. Yes, but that's also are you really in it if the Nuggets just kind of flick you aside? That's the one where I think there would be a healthy debate.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I also think the other thing that's happening is if you look at the 2 old guys, relatively speaking, who are playing well, I don't think it's a coincidence that Chris Paul and Draymond are playing like they're playing, knowing that both of them, had 20, 25 games off in the middle of the season. There's something really, I think, important about that, and I think there's something to it. So if they get into the postseason, how are Steph and Klay? They're both going to man. I'm with Dibs. You would take that from now till the rest of their career. If you can give 140 plus games from the 2 of them together, I mean, boy, and yeah, I get it. They've been a little more inconsistent, but still at a pretty high level, 70 plus games. I mean. How do you prepare for the future with those 2 guys? Let's say you re-sign Klay. Do you go into next season saying, well, we expect him to play 70 again? Or do you say, we'll probably have to load manage him at some point? How do you move forward with that?
Yeah.
Maybe not questions for today.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've reached the spot of okay, they're pretty good right now. So let's dive into next week. Hopefully there are more weeks to come after that. And then some of these things will start to come into focus. But Klay is still, to me, is easily the most interesting one. I was struck by so many things that I heard yesterday, from Stephen A. Smith talking to his dad coming on our show and answering the questions in a way he's never answered them before, which it's not that I didn't expect that. For those that didn't hear it, he was just like, oh, we don't talk about, the future. And I'm like, yes, you do. I know you do. And I understand why he's not answering that question. But by the same token, did I sort of take something from that? Yes. I'm not saying Klay's leaving. I walked out of yesterday thinking it is much, much more on the table than I thought it was.
Wow. You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch and YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Was that because of what Michael said or what Klay said to Draymond on Draymond's podcast? Or a little bit of both?
It's a little bit of both, but more Michael.
Okay.
More Michael. The complete and total, I have no idea about the future. We don't talk about that. We got to stay in the moment.
He was guarded.
No one's, and I get why. Yeah. Obviously, family members are not supposed to step in the mud and mess with this stuff. But I remind people, 6 months ago, he had no problem doing that. 6 months ago, he tweeted, Klay's not going anywhere. He's a warrior. Yeah. He had no problem saying that on a public website in October. Yeah. Yesterday, it's we don't even talk about that. yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
And and you said it's about next week. It's about tomorrow in Portland. But when you think about Klay Thompson, Dibs, tell me if I'm wrong, Steiny, leverage, I always looked at it as if, do the Warriors want to invest in you with where you're at? And guess what? He got up off the mat. Now he's balling, and he's telling you he can still shoot. And Willard, I feel like now the leverage is kind of switched. Do you want to remain a Warrior? And when I heard you guys talking to Pops, I was like, Pops was holding on to something. And he wasn't sharing it like he did in October when Klay kind of was, do you want to? So now I'm getting a little nervous on, okay, so Klay could be looking at, they put me to the bench. You offered me 2 years, but you gave Dre 4.
Right.
So I'm doing Klay math, trying to stay in my lane, but I'm kind of biting my nails like, I wonder if he's irritated a bit at the org.
He's definitely irritated a bit. Yeah. And, we heard from the Draymond pod that Klay had to have 4 conversations with Steve Kerr. That was the number. And it's something we'll ask Steve Kerr about today, about what those heart-to-hearts were like.
Wow.
He had 4 conversations. Not 1, not 2, not 3.
Brett Favre.
It took, thank you, 4 conversations.
How many times we passed the ball?
4. How many conversations do we need to have? 4. And it took 4 convos for him to kind of get out of his own way, get out of his own head, and realize, wow, I should just enjoy this, enjoy now, and enjoy the fact that I'm healthy enough to do what I'm doing. And he's played like he's actually put all that behind him.
No doubt.
So in terms of leverage, though, I don't think that there's much leverage on either side, because if I read Joe Lacob the way I've read it, which is we're staying out of the tax, every interview, every quote he's given, he talks about staying below the tax, which tells me they're going to have a hard number that they can pay Klay this upcoming year. And if Klay can get more elsewhere, I think he'll go elsewhere. That's kind of the way I read it.
I'm getting a little antsy on the whole offseason conversation. Like, I don't know.
We're not there yet.
No, well,
are you ready for it, or you're just like,
no? I'm ready for more of last night. Like, I'm not saying that last night changed my opinion on anything, but like, I don't know, man. This is going to be unbelievable theater next week.
They could go on a run.
I'm just saying. So let's go ahead and let's put a pin in that and just pause that for a moment.
Well, I wonder what you guys.
Because I got a stat too. I don't want to deflate his balloon.
Well, I don't know.
But I'm going to.
I don't know what your stat is, but I wonder if it applies to this year. Can we all admit this is a pretty elite year in the Western Conference?
Oh man.
So Jeff Pearlman said something on Twitter yesterday. You guys know Jeff, great sports author, and I don't know if I fully agree with him. But he took a snapshot of the top 10 teams in the West, okay? Consider this now. The old format, a team that's 10 games over 500 would be out of the playoffs this year. The 9 seed, the Lakers are 10 over 500.
Right.
Would not be in the playoffs at all. That's crazy.
The West is private school.
And he took a snapshot and said, I don't know if I've ever seen this before. All 10 of these teams can make a legitimate argument that they have a shot to make the NBA Finals. I don't know if I agree with him. I don't know if I'd label the Kings or maybe the Pelicans that way, but I understand where he's coming from. These are not like, there's 4 good teams and then 5 strong ones.
The East.
Right. Have you seen the records of the 9 and 10 seed in the East?
Right. Pretty bad.
This is a little crazy, and I think that does need to be entered into this conversation. Because when we say you're the 10 seed, you are, but this is not a normal 10 seed. Well, it's not a normal 10 seed.
It's happened before.
Have more wins than last year.
I'll take you back to 2008, and I'll never forget it. I was working for another station, and we had a contest where I was going to shoot 3-pointers against a listener.
Shoot your shot.
And it happened to be on the final home game of the year, the Steiny penultimate game of the season in 2008, and they were playing, I believe, Denver, and the Warriors needed to win and get help to make the playoffs. They won. They didn't get help. They wound up 48-34, and they did not make the playoffs in 2008. And I shot 3s. I went 1 of 9 against the listener, beat him 1-0.
Wow.
And I remember
pitcher's duel.
I remember Steiny telling me before I went out there that 3-pointer is further than you think. And as I went out there, a good friend, not a great friend, but a guy I know named Tom Tolbert was sitting along the baseline, holding his stomach, laughing as I'm hoisting airball after airball. And as I'm shooting 3s, all I can think about is Steiny in my ear. That 3's a little further than you think. And 5 airballs, 1 make. Point being, the Warriors went 48-34 and did not make the playoffs.
It happens every now and again.
Correct.
Like baseball version of 1993.
50-win teams only that year.
Yeah. I mean,
you had to win 50 games in the West to make the
50 wins only in the West,
Yeah. But, I mean,
the 8
Warriors
seed was 50 and 32.
Well, the Warriors may end up with 47.
Yeah.
And
well, how do you measure that against last year?
Well, they've already matched last year's win total.
Yeah, you'd rather win 44 but be a 6.
And Steve has clearly stated that this team's better than last year.
But Lacob said,
and I think I agree.
Lacob said if they flame out in the play-in, The big changes are on the horizon.
And I think that he will play it that way. I think he will play it that way. But there is a fair and healthy conversation to where this team is right now. I don't know if they're great. They're good. They're good.
They're good against the bad, but against the good, they're bad. And this is what I was going to say to Goo.
The Lakers
not
good?
To deflate. Yeah. I don't know what their record is against the top 7 in the West, but I know what the Warriors is. They're 5-20.
The Lakers are a good team.
The Warriors are 5-20 against the top 7 seeds in the West. Not the top 2.
Right.
Not the top 4.
But the Lakers are not
the
in
top
that.
7.
But the Lakers are a good team.
No, but we're talking about them going on a run.
They beat LeBron.
And I don't think that the Warriors are going to go on a, quote, run when they're 5-20 against the top 7 in the West.
Probably not. But that's like, what is that? Again, everybody go on a run, and then everyone defines run differently.
They're not going to win a series.
Okay. Well,
so
maybe they won't.
You need to win a series to go on a run. Can we all agree to that?
Yes, but
if they get Minnesota,
that also doesn't mean that there isn't some value and conversation in that. You come out of the play-in tournament and take Minnesota or OKC or Denver to 6 or 7 games. There's a conversation about the state of the organization there. That's not an obvious answer.
And the fact,
to me, it's pretty obvious.
And the fact that they've blown all these 12-point leads, Dibs, you give us that record, and you state it as if they're not even qualified and belong on the same floor. The Warriors just got to learn how to close some of those games against the better teams, like Denver last time they seen them up 12 in the 4th.
Right.
So I'm just saying,
OKC
it's not
twice.
like you're outclassed.
No, but 25
you know what I mean?
25 games is
12-point blown leads.
That's not a small sample. 25 games is a big sample.
And who cares about the game, like the points? If the Warriors end up 8 and they play Denver and they lose in 5 games, well, then I'll look at it and say they're 1-12 against Denver in the last 2 years. So let's be realistic about how far we are from that particular team. Well, I don't know how far we are from Oklahoma City or Minnesota.
I hear that. That's championship you're looking at.
You haven't beaten Denver in 2 years. Like, there's a difference between if you can go 6 or 7 games with Denver or get beaten 4 or 5.
But see, this is so funny. We go, okay, we don't want to make it about one game, but then we do. And I sort of agree with you. There's a difference if they were to bow it in 5 versus 6.
Right. But
like there is. There's just a difference. That's what 6 is a long series. 5 is a gentleman's sweep.
Well, the Lakers don't get credit. The Warriors don't get credit for the Lakers. They lost in 6, and people act like it was.
Well, but they weren't.
Sweep.
That's different than like. It's not like they were going against the 1 seed.
And they had home court.
Like they were supposed to win that series. They were going against a lower seed.
And you got vanquished by, no disrespect to the pride of Reading, Pennsylvania, but Lonnie Walker the 4th.
Oh, 4th.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I mean, no disrespect, but Lonnie Walker the 4th was the reason why you lost that first game. So,
what time you got Steve Kerr?
Steve Kerr will be on with us in an hour.
Let's go.
3:15.
We'll be listening.
Yeah. And you know where he'll be? On 95.7.